In Activity 5, Scale and Relative Size, students first explore the concepts of scale, ratio, and relative size, and learn about the relationships among metric units of measure. Students then discover that drawings of objects must be made to the same scale in order to determine their relative sizes. You'll need the following materials from the kit: Activity Sheet 5, meter sticks, metric rulers, and the goldfish and whale scale drawing poster. To prepare for the activity, make a copy of Activity Sheet 5 for each student. Each team of 2 will need a metric ruler and 2 sheets of plain paper. Make sure to have each team share a meter stick with another team. To begin the activity, distribute a metric ruler to each team of 2. Have students find the smallest divisions on the rulers and explain to the class that these small marks are measurements called millimeters. Then have students count 10 millimeter marks starting from 0. Point out that at the end of 10 millimeters, the numeral 1 is written. Explain that 10 millimeters is equal in length to 1 centimeter. Then ask students how many centimeters long is the ruler. Students should reply that the ruler is 30.5 centimeters long. Next, pair up each team with another team and distribute a meter stick to each new team of 4 students. Explain to the class that a meter stick is 1 meter or 100 centimeters in length. Ask students if 1 meter is equal to 100 centimeters, how many millimeters are there in 1 meter? Students should calculate that there are 1,000 millimeters in 1 meter. Make sure to continue to explore the relationships among millimeters, centimeters, and meters until students are familiar with the measurements and conversions. Next, introduce the term scale to students as a way of showing the size of one object in proportion to another. And explain that to express scale, we use a numerical ratio. Write 1:30 on the board and explain that the ratio of 1 to 30 means that 1 unit of measure in the smaller object represents 30 units in the larger object. Then use a team's meter stick and draw a 1 centimeter line. Then ask students, if this line is a scale drawing of the meter stick, what is the scale of the drawing? Guide students to conclude that since 1 centimeter represents 100 centimeters in the actual object, the scale is 1 to 100. Next, draw a tree that is about 60 centimeters tall, and underneath the tree, write the ratio 1 to 30. Ask students to imagine that this image represents an actual tree outside, and to identify the scale of the drawing. Ask, how can we find out how tall the actual tree is? To determine the actual height, students must know both the height of the drawing and the scale at which the tree is drawn. Therefore, make sure students see you measure the height of the tree drawing and label it 60 centimeters. Point to the ratio under the tree and remind students that this means every 1 centimeter of height in the drawing represents 30 centimeters in height of the actual tree. Ask students, how tall is the actual tree that this drawing represents? Students should calculate that the actual tree is 1,800 centimeters, or 18 meters tall, by multiplying 60 centimeters by 30 centimeters. Next, distribute Activity Sheet 5 and instruct students to measure the drawings of trees, and use the scale in Question 1 to determine the heights of the actual trees. Have students record their answers and complete the activity sheet. Ask students, at a scale of 1 centimeter to 5 centimeters, which drawing is the largest? Which is the smallest? Students should identify tree B as the largest and tree A as the smallest. Then ask, if the scale is 1 centimeter to 10 meters, which drawing is the largest? Which is the smallest? In this scenario, students should identify tree E as the largest and tree F as the smallest. Finally, ask students, how could we determine which drawing represents a larger real-life tree if the scale drawings are the same size but the ratios are different? Students should deduce that if the second number in the ratio is higher, the scale represents a taller actual tree. Next, define relative size to students as how large or small one object is compared to another object. Call students' attention to trees A, B, and C, all of which are drawn to the same scale, and ask, which tree do you think is larger in relative size? tree A or tree B? Students should respond that tree B is larger relative to tree A, and that the actual size of tree B is also larger than tree A because they are drawn to the same scale. Point out that in order to determine the relative or actual sizes of two or more objects based on their drawings, the drawings must be done according to the same scale. To illustrate this point, distribute 2 sheets of plain notebook paper to each team of 2, and have one student draw a goldfish and the other draw a whale. When the students have finished, have them compare the drawings of the goldfish and the whale by asking, "Can you determine the relative sizes of these 2 animals by comparing their relative sizes in your drawings?" Students should say that they cannot compare the relative size of the 2 animals, since the drawings were not drawn to the same scale. The whale obviously had to be scaled down, whereas the goldfish size was not reduced to the same degree. Take this opportunity to define scale drawing for the class as a 2-dimensional scaled representation of a smaller or larger object. Finally, display the goldfish and whale scale drawing poster and have students compare these images with their drawings. Point out that the drawings you are showing can be used to determine the relative sizes of the 2 animals because they are drawn to the same scale, in this instance, a scale of 1 to 20. To conclude this activity, return all materials to the kit. For science background, reinforcement activities, curriculum connections, and information about the Delta Science Reader, please consult your DSM Teacher's Guide.